Welcome to Conversations with Young Leaders in Menstrual Health and Hygiene, a conversation series brought to you by me, Janet Mbugua, with Menstrual Hygiene Day. Now, this series features brilliant young voices who are really leading change in menstrual health and hygiene around the world. In honor of Menstrual Hygiene Day, that's really when this series came about. And so we're going to be showcasing conversations on the 28th of every month, beginning this month in June. Each episode highlights a young leader, somebody who's using their voice, platform, or lived experience to shift the narrative or break stigma around menstruation. Today we are joined by Liz Lum, an incredible young advocate that I had the fortune of meeting back in 2023. I heard her speak. I clutched my pearls. I'm like, who is this young woman? But I just want her to tell us a little bit more about herself. Liz, how do you describe yourself?
Thank you so much, Janet. My name is Liz Lum, and I'm a passionate young advocate. I have been at the forefront of fighting for the rights of girls for close to a decade now, specifically around sexual and reproductive health, which includes menstruation, as well as meaningful participation and decision-making. And all through my work, I have engaged with, many organizations that work for young people, especially around initiatives promoting menstrual health. And currently, I am co-leading a national campaign for the removal of taxes on period products back in Cameroon. So yeah, that's what's going
amazing.
On. And I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, how's it going?
It is challenging. As young people, we're a group of young women who just want the status quo to change. And really, it is challenging, not just because we do not have the required finances to move the project forward, but also because we are trying to, when you're trying to tell a government made of the older generation, like this doesn't work anymore. We have to change this. It's almost like you are attacking livelihood. And so what we're trying to do right now is basically just research around why, or just bring evidence around how removal of taxes is going to greatly improve the health of young women and girls in the country.
Mm-hmm. Trying to get them. Let's go a little bit back, Liz, and I'm just trying to, because you say close to a decade, which essentially means, and correct me if I'm wrong, you started doing this work in your teens, right?
Yes.
All right. What was your first interaction with not just understanding menstrual health, but understanding that there are gaps in menstrual health and hygiene? What was that first encounter like for you? And when was it?
Okay, so this was when I was 9 years old and I had my period. So I didn't know that it was my period because the classroom knowledge I got was, you gotta be 12 first, and you would have the period after breast, after the breast development and all of that. And as a 9-year-old, I had no breast. I just came home from school one day, I went to take a shower, and boom, there was blood everywhere. And I was confused because even my caregivers, my parents and nanny at the time, they also didn't think anyone could get their period at 9. So I tried to hide it, And when they found out that I was bleeding, it became some sort of a question and answer. I was put like in an interrogation space, like, what happened to you? Who touched you? Mm-hmm. So many questions. And I felt so much shame. I felt so much like, oh my God, what is this horrible thing I have done? What is happening to me? And when I grew from then to like 12 and I'm reading and looking at how this thing actually functions, how it works, I'm seeing like that was actually quite normal. To have period as a 9-year-old, and even out of what the textbook tells us it's supposed to be. And that was the first time I figured out, like, oh my God, one, there is an information gap that we have around what menstrual health is, what menstruation is, who it affects, when. There is that gap. And the shame I felt, I did not want anybody else to go through that kind of shame, because it was like, I've done something terrible, or there was some sort of curse, something was wrong, this was not right. And looking at that, it would have greatly played on my confidence. It would have really played on how I interacted with the world. I almost didn't go to school the following week because I was like, I don't know, with this curse, if I walk around with this curse, anyone else can notice. And that was kind of a wake-up call to the fact that we need information. We need much more clear, not classroom information, not biological information, but actual information for young people.
Liz, I'm hearing you and I'm like, I feel seen and heard because I started my period at 10. 10 years, your 9 is really young. 9 and 10 is young. And it's funny, I don't know whether our shock at not having accurate information is what prompted us to do the work we do. Because much like you, my mom was like, wait, what do you mean you started your... Because I woke up and there was blood on the bed. And the first thing I thought is I'm dying or something's wrong with me because I was 10. And just like you, a lot of the conversations were starting in the teens. So my journey into my period was also with trauma around it. And it took me a while. And then I ended up realizing I have a menstrual disorder because I still struggle with endometriosis. But I'm finding those similarities with you and I, which is we started really young and then realized that there was an information gap. I think the difference is with you, because that was a while back for me and I didn't realize until much later that, this is something that a lot of people go through. Tell us about when then you began to really advocate for shifting the conversations to ensure that the policy conversations were starting to be had. When was that moment that you said, you know what, I'm going to raise my voice to this issue. I don't care how young I am, this needs to happen. When was that?
I would say when I was about 10. So
wow,
funny thing is,
okay.
So funny thing is, at 10, I had a best friend. She was Muslim. She was 12, I was 10. And, we always shared around what we want to do when we grow up, what we're going to achieve. And she was so brilliant and smart. And when she was 12 at the time, she had her period. And I think the following week, she came to school all sad and I'm like, what's going on? And she says her mom just told her when she's done with this class, she has to go get married because, she's already gotten her period. She's already grew breasts. So she's now woman enough to go get married. And I was devastated. I'm like, what is it about this period thingy that, just marks blessing or curse in a woman's life? What exactly it is? What exactly is this period thing? And also at the time, in Africa, respect is binding. You can't go to an older person and say, hey, this thing you're doing is wrong. And especially at that age, I didn't really know what was wrong or right, but I knew something wasn't adding up. Like this isn't supposed to happen. And so I'm just grateful. At the time, my mom saw how disturbed I was because I was convincing her, can we go talk to her parents? Can we go just try to convince her mom? We couldn't because by the time we were able to reach out and I was told she was already taken to be married. Till date, I can't find her. I don't know if she died in childbirth. I don't know if she's being abused in the marriage or anything at all. But that was the time I figured out girls needed information about their bodies. We also needed control over these bodies. And gender equality was also something that started coming to me at the time. And I realized the bedrock of gender equality is sexual and reproductive health and rights. When women are able to master and make control and make decisions and have control over their sexual lives, over their reproductive health, then they are much more able to make stronger and bigger decisions about their lives. And so at the time, my mom sent me to attend some girl leadership programs that were going on in the community at the time. I then started putting a name to things. I was now able to recognize, okay, this is what this is called. This is called menstrual health. This is called early marriage. This is called this, and I'm glad because our challenge, that particular project, that it was a project for an organization and we were invited, and that particular project, our challenge was go into your community and talk to other people about what you've learned. Go and talk to other people about what you've seen and heard here. And so I was able to just move into the community, and yes, I would say I got a lot of stares. As a 10-year-old, you're talking about menstrual health, right. You're talking about sex and sex education. That is it is unheard of, And so I was able to just walk into communities. We used to go to the markets and just talk to the women in the market. We went to bars sometimes, to drinking spots to say, oh, my dear fathers, please do not send your girls to marriage early. And sometimes they'd be like, what do you know? Go back to school.
Wow. Who was accompanying you? Because you were pretty young. Who was taking you to some of these different areas?
So they put us in groups. Obviously,
okay.
When they have these programs, there are groups. They would say they will pair the 10-year-olds and the 15-year-olds. They will pair, So you go in groups into the market. I'm grateful for the fact that I have never been silence in the sense that someone told me, oh, you talk too much, you shouldn't do this that much. I'm grateful because my parents didn't bottle me up. So whenever I started to talk or I wanted to read, they would allow me get all the knowledge I needed. They would allow me talk to whomever I wanted and on whatever issue I wanted. So it was pretty much me doing what I was passionate about, talking to people about an issue I really did care about.
I think that's such a brilliant story. And Liz, in many ways, you're talking about how your friend, who you're like, I don't even know where she is. That's still a reality for a lot of women, not just on the continent, around the world in different countries. You start your period, and I love how you put it, it's either a blessing or a curse. You said something really critical again. You talked about speaking in communities. You talked about going to bars and speaking with dads, etc. What have you seen as the most important role of working with the famous term is allies, right? Whether it's men and boys, whether it's community champions, whether it's the pastor, the imam. Like, take us through some of the challenges, but also the importance of having all these people be part of this movement.
The thing with men and boys around the menstrual health and menstrual hygiene conversation is whenever you talk about it, especially with men and boys, they always try to, remove themselves from the conversation. Like, this is a women's only thing. And I don't think that is accurate. That is not even true, and they play an important role, especially around stigma, around how do young women embrace their periods, especially in the public space. When I think about my life in secondary school and I think about my peers, how we managed period or stain, a lot of it was around, Jesus, what did these boys say? Did they see? What were they saying about me when I left? It's things like that. And so when men and boys, we join together to make an environment that is comfortable, to make sure that conversations are open. And this is a normal conversation about something that is quite natural. It's crazy for me that it is much more easier to discuss sex and sexual pleasure and sexual intercourse with men than it is to talk about menstrual health and menstrual hygiene. And it's crazy because when I say this is actually menstrual health is one of the very first encounters a girl will have with reproductive health. This is the very first things we encounter. The first interaction that girls have with reproductive health is their period. That's the very first thing we come in contact with, our periods. And it's crazy that it's not a normal conversation. It is something about shame. Oh, you have to cover this. I used to talk with my grandma, and she told me in their time, when you were on your period, because she was married to my grandpa who had many wives and all of that, I said when you were on your period, you had to be in a separate house, sleeping on the bamboo bed. You don't have to come in contact with the other wives who are not in their period, or you don't have to come in contact with your husband because you were unclean at that time and things like that. And I'm looking at how that is today. It is not when you at work and you talk about, oh, my period this, my period that. People are like, no, this is your private thing. You don't have to bring it here. But that's not true, because people are looking at menstrual health, or I like to call it menstrual health, because menstruation is not a hygiene issue. It is a health issue. It affects education. It affects your well-being. If we look at everything that happens to us women when we are on our period, the headaches, the bloating, the sickness, the morning sickness and all of that, if we listed those as symptoms and went to work and said, oh, this is what is happening to me, you are classified as sick. It is sick, and they're going to give you a sick leave. But then because they said it's menstruation, and people start attacking you with, but our grandmothers used to manage this, they did not used to complain.
Exactly.
No, that was because you silenced them. There was no system for discussion of these things, but we're talking about it now. And because men are the ones who are mostly in decision-making spaces, they are the ones who create this mindset where a woman will have to swallow her pain. A woman will have to go to work even when she's dealing with crippling cramps because she wants to make profit for the company. Now, if this kind of workspaces were period friendly, if the men in these spaces who are leading these spaces understood what it meant as menstruation not being a hygiene issue but a health issue, then they will make better policies. They will implement better menstrual health policies at work, either having emergency pad kits in the bathroom so women don't have to go out of office when they get their period unexpectedly at work. They would make provision for pain relievers in the office, they're also going to make provision for period leaves for women who cannot come to work on their periods. And that is how we begin to create workplaces, school environments that are period friendly and safe, with the contribution and effort from male allies.
Oh my goodness. Love it. Wow. What is another thing that you're doing just to ensure that we're creating a period-friendly world?
I'm creating a period-friendly world by treating menstruation as a health issue rather than a hygiene issue. For so long, the talk and advocacy around menstrual hygiene, or when Menstrual Health Day comes around, is sharing of sanitary pad kits and talking about how to keep clean, which is good. But then we have to move the conversation forward. We have to move to what are the laws and policies that are in place to make sure that girls and women are able to thrive during their periods. Are they having access to all of the products necessary? Are they having access to the education and sound information needed to go through their periods? Are they welcome and accepted in their communities during their periods? These are the conversations we need to have. And those are the kind of conversations I am having as Liz with my peers, in my community, at the workplace, at my church, anywhere I find myself. We need to treat menstruation as a health issue rather than a hygiene issue.
Oh my gosh, Liz. Woo! Liz, I'm so proud of you. And man, don't give up. As somebody who's done the journey for a while, it can get very, I'm sure you've experienced it. You're like, oh my gosh, what is moving? Are things really moving?
Exactly.
It's very, I know.
Exactly.
It can be.
I just finished a research project with Gates Ventures about how we were looking at 6 exemplar countries, learning about their policies and just rules and laws that they have in place to promote adolescent sexual and reproductive health. And as a youth advisor for Cameroon, I was supposed to review the policies that Cameroon has in place. And I was so shocked that I reviewed all of the health policies for sexual health and everything, and I could not find one specific policy that addresses menstrual health as a stand-alone issue. Not one. And it just got me thinking, like, so all these years of advocacy and the talking and everything, nothing is moving. Like, what exactly are we doing? You know?
Right.
Yes, I'm not losing hope.
Yeah, don't lose hope. Something will move. And I love that you're prioritizing the policy factor. Liz, thank you for everything you do. We celebrate you as a young, bold voice. And even the days that you feel tired or discouraged, just understand that your voice 100% makes a difference. And yeah, very proud of you from one sister to another. Just really well done, and keep going. Keep the fight alive.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz.